This episode is brought to you by the Enlisted Kidney Foundation. If you'd like to support the work that we're doing, please consider a donation at enlistedkidneyfoundation.org/donate. You could also pause the screen right now and take a quick photo of this QR code. It'll take you to the same place. Sit back, relax, and let's get into it with the FilterLIFE podcast.
Senator, it's more prevalent than cancer, just like Mr. Holmes just said. It's 1 in 7 Americans. Your constituents, it's a new day. They don't want to go on dialysis and transplant. And a couple of years ago, if I saw you, I couldn't say this, but today it's different. The medications are there. We just need your help because the financial system right now, the way doctors are reimbursed and the way the healthcare system, it is almost rigged because that's what they do. 90% of these folks who are nephrologists, they're great people. They're really wonderful doctors. They're there to help. But they also make their living through dialysis, and we got to change that and get to preventive medicine. And that aligns with the president's agenda. It aligns with everybody else's agenda. One thing we could all agree on, that if we can treat you with available medications and keep you off dialysis transplant, isn't that a great thing? Well, we can do that now. It's particularly affecting people of color, disproportionate, 1 in 7 Americans, but it's not. It's 4 to 7 times more prevalent in people of color than their white counterparts. It is an issue, but the most severe. So here's an interesting fact for your folks joining in. Rare kidney disease, while it's less than 1% of the population of kidney disease, it accounts for over 30%, almost 1/3 of people who go on to end stage. And that's because the rare disease is just ironically, no bad choice of words, but incidentally also happen to be the most severe.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the FilterLIFE podcast. Today, we have a very, very special guest, somebody dear to my heart, and somebody that has been very influential in the success of the Enlisted Kidney Foundation. Today, let's welcome Josh Tarnoff, the CEO of NephCure. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan. You and I are friends that go back a ways, and it's an honor to be invited here today. So thank you for the opportunity to share with your guests.
Absolutely, Josh. I know we've been missing each other trying to get this scheduled for some time, so I'm glad we were able to get this carved out. I think what we have planned for our guest today is going to be something special. It's going to be definitely something special. Before we talk about the advocacy, the research, and the kidney disease, I want to let people know a little bit about the man behind the organization. Josh, tell me a little bit about your kidney journey. I understand that you are a kidney patient yourself.
It's an embarrassing story, but I feel safe here today. So having led scout troops and outdoor groups for years, I was with my kids and decided to take a break and sit on a rock. And the rock was occupied by a rattlesnake. So I'll leave your guest the imagination exactly where, but certainly sitting on the snake. He let me know that wasn't a good idea. And I wound up with a case of what they call interstitial nephritis, which is not a form of nephrotic syndrome or anything along those lines, but it's very similar. And if you remember back in the day, we treated everything with high-dose steroids, no matter what you got, right? And I was put on a journey, and this acute episode led to chronic kidney disease for a couple of years of heavy doses of being steroid dependent, 80 milligrams a day of prednisone, and you know what that can do to you, right?
Yep, I know what it's doing to me, right? I'll share with you later what it's doing to me right now. But yes, 100 milligrams a day for 18 months is not fun.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I knew I was affected by it when I found myself in my neighbor's lawn with my hands in the air going like this, like, why did you drive so fast past my house? And I wound up looking at myself going, how did I get here? It was really bad. So, yeah, I for all those who are listening who are on steroids, know how you feel. Yeah. And that journey, honestly, I was in the drug industry at the time. And we were looking at one of these molecules of, what disease it would work really well against. And somebody mentioned a kidney disease, and it popped my interest, and I started pivoting toward FSGS. And that was probably 15, 20 years ago. And that's where it all started. Wow.
Did you ever see yourself being in the position you're in today? Was that ever a thought or a dream, or, where did that come from?
Such a great question. I was a diehard, working in the industry for 35 years, right? And, you kind of get focused on that's the way to go. And one day I had the pleasure of meeting NephCure, and one of the first companies to go into rare kidney disease, and went to NephCure for some help on understanding the disease, and met a woman named Lauren Lee, if you remember Lauren at the time, who's now working at Travere. And back then she was a senior role at NephCure. And that's when I got to know the organization. And I was like, wow, what a great group of people.
Yeah.
And that really was the start. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we all remember that first NephCure moment. I mean, for me, it was sitting in the hospital bed, wearing the gown with my butt out in the back, surfing, like doom scrolling on Google about what membranous nephropathy was, and trying to find another human on the planet that had this disease that could know
Man.
anything more about it than my doctors, because they didn't know much of anything. So, and then I found you guys. I found NephCure. I found community. I found support. It was awesome. So I think we all remember the moment that we stumble upon NephCure. It's awesome.
And listen, I appreciate your bringing me here today, but I also want your listeners to appreciate what you have done. I mean, you have been NephCure's Volunteer of the Year in years past, and very selflessly given of your time and telling your story and journey to folks on Capitol Hill, to other patients at Patient Summit. And, you've been a great philanthropist yourself in giving of your time. And I think people should appreciate that. The good news is today, man, we are looking at a situation where what you have, membranous nephropathy, we just got great data on a trial phase 3, and we're looking to probably have that drug approved in a year or two. So look where things have come.
Wow.
That's the
Man.
good news. So today,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, we
focusing
went from
on it's a
nothing,
different day.
right? I remember being in the hall at my first NephCure Patient Summit, and just with my pen and my pad, right, just asking a million questions, writing down a million different things because I didn't know what it meant, any of it. And that was the start of the journey, was realizing how much education I didn't have and that wasn't out there, and the digging, and then the questions started, right? Well, how and why and what is this doing and how does this affect you? And it really helped provide direction, I think, for me. I tell people a lot of times about the flick of the compass story for me. And NephCure definitely, when they came into my life, had no intentions of flicking a compass. They took my compass, they guided it in a direction, you know what I mean? And that led to success, which was awesome. And they do it for so many other people. But I appreciate the kind words. I mean, I feel we have a responsibility in the positions that we both hold, the positions that we're at, with the amount of pain and suffering that I've been through. I wouldn't want anybody else to go through this, especially if there are ways and means that we don't have to, right? And I think that's coming. I think there's a lot of trial by fire, I think, has been the past 6 years, I guess, for me, has been this roll of the dice and trial by fire. But the outcome, what has come out of this, I think, has been amazing. And I can't wait for the more progression. I mean, that's just where that we're going. We have now drugs. Let's talk about this. The first ever drug approved by the FDA for FSGS treatment, called FilSpari. Now, NephCure holds a huge space in this, right? A huge space of bringing this to launch. Man, talk to me a little bit about your guys' involvement with this, and what the benefits of this drug may be for a patient that has FSGS, and what the future of this may be.
Yeah, it's great. It's exciting. Getting back to you answering that question, I'm thinking of a newly diagnosed patient with FSGS or membranous nephropathy. And as you said, the doom scrolling, right? And so before we
Yeah.
get into FilSpari, I would ask everybody, especially if you're a new patient, most people who are on the internet today, and they're mentioning those are the folks who really haven't gotten the great care that they need. And so take with a grain of salt what you hear about the horror stories, because it is a different day. And frankly, if whatever's up there is more than 2 years old from a medical perspective, don't even read it, because it's changed,
True.
right?
Yep.
And, we've been at it now. NephCure is over 25 years old at this point, and we have our first drug for FSGS, FilSpari, which is super exciting. And if you've got FSGS, Of all the rare protein spilling diseases, it's probably the most heterogeneous. Fancy word for really diverse, right? And we say if you've seen one FSGS patient, you've seen one FSGS patient, right? And you live that with membranous nephropathy, which is not too dissimilar. At the end of the day, everybody's got their own journey, right? You've got, do you have kids? Do you have health insurance? Are you in the VA system? What access to care do you have? And so everybody really does need customized care. So, when you have a rare disease, I hate to say it, you got to really trust but verify, the old Ronald Reagan,
Hmm.
right? You got to
Yep.
trust your doctor, but at the same time, you got to do your own independent research. And so that's the background. And so, when we get to drugs like Filspari, what this means is it's incredible. At the end of the day, this is a drug that has broad application to most patients with FSGS, regardless of what form you might have. And
Wow.
FSGS, remember, it's a syndrome, and it's not
Yeah.
a disease. You hear all these names: membranous nephropathy, FSGS, IgAN. It's basically what a doctor sees when they take a slice of your kidney under the microscope.
It's a picture.
It's a
FSGS is a picture. It's just
You
a
got it.
picture. It's a picture of scarring, and it shows us how far the scarring has gone through, right? And if you go all the way through, then we got FSGS. So it's an image.
Yeah.
It's an image. It's an autoimmune disease that affects our kidneys, but it's an image. The FSGS itself is an image, and it shows us that scarring. There's a lot of things outside that can contribute to that scarring, whether it be genetic and things like that.
And that is the key, man. At the end of the day, you're looking at a picture of a slice, right? And as you said, all right, I got this, but we can have 5 people with the same diagnosis, but the different etiology, fancy word for how did you get there? What caused that scarring, right? And so no 2 patients are the same. And why I really like this agent is that it is broadly applicable to most of the people with FSGS. And the way the side effect profile is with this drug, it really is my advice to folks is talk to your doctor because everybody should be given a trial to see if it works. Chances are it's going to lower your protein to some measurable degree. And if it doesn't, you don't take it anymore. But it's not a highly toxic agent that we worry about, like high dose steroids or some of these other off label cancer drugs we've been using throughout the years. So it's an agent that is a great starter. Uh, if you get your protein down 20, 30%, that's the same as adding 10 years of your life to your kidney, right?
Oh my god, I know exactly how that feels because that was the
So,
hugest goal was
yeah,
going from that 12,000 milligrams of your proteinuria going down to 1 and then going down to 400 and then going away was amazing because the disease, that's the hard part. What a lot of people don't understand about these protein spilling kidney diseases is I think there's a one-to-one correlation with the amount you're spilling versus how bad this is affecting your body.
yeah.
And the more we spill, the worse off we are, worse things, and the more life-threatening it becomes, I believe. So the goal is to lower the proteinuria, and I believe that's what Filspari does.
Yeah, I mean, how many times a week do you measure your protein? Yeah. I mean, you're a great example, right? So you're somebody
Yeah.
really you're in touch, you feel with your body. How many times do you do it a
Uh,
month, let's say?
well, I would need to measure mine right now about twice a week.
Yeah,
Is
right.
where I would be at just to make sure because I'm in an untreated area. I'm in this space of like rituximab, we don't know yet kind of
Yeah,
space with MN,
right.
right?
Yeah.
And we're in the space where the markers that show rituximab protection, those markers have all returned back to normal that usually we
That's great.
suppress, which is great, but we don't know about relapse. And MN relapse is very a common type of occurrence. And where we are with rituximab in studies is how does that affect the relapse after we become untreated? Because I'm not treated right now. I got the treated. I don't take any other kind of treatment for the membranous and just a little bit of Jardiance to keep that proteinuria back a little bit.
Yeah,
But twice a week to answer your question.
that's right. So I mean, that's the thing I would encourage folks listening today is really get in touch with your body because there are things that are in common with all these rare kidney diseases that if you overdo it, right? If you get a high inflammatory diet, if you over exercise, right? When you're
Yeah.
running and you go 1 more mile, no, your kidneys don't want that, right? Your creatinine could be too much, and or if you're dehydrated. So getting in touch and reading your proteinuria on a regular basis, especially people with FSGS, man, you can feel it, right? Now, I bet you can feel it even with membranous. When you're spilling, you
Yeah.
just feel crappy. It's basically waste products building up in your bloodstream. Of course you feel terrible. And so at the end of the day, drugs like FilSpari that can lower protein in a meaningful way, boy, yeah, absolutely. And, it may not put everybody into complete remission,
Mhm.
but boy, if it gets your protein level down meaningfully, that's huge. That changes, that's a life changer. Yeah,
Keeps us off dialysis, buys us time. There's work in between there. And that's what I learned about membranous. There's a lot of work in between treatment and success. In between there's these little stages that a patient has to go through to manage blood pressure and eating habits and all these different little small micro changes that you kind of need to make on a daily basis that equal at the end of the day success. And if there's a drug like FilSpari that can just take some of that pressure off of us, you know what I mean? It allows the brain space and your medical team the time to help figure out other ailments that you may be going through, right? I can't
right.
figure out the high blood pressure and the weight gain and the water retention if I can't control the proteinuria. I'm just losing the albumin, right? So if I got a hole at the end of the bucket and I'm just pouring albumin in it, it's never going to be helpful until we can plug that hole at the bottom of the bucket. So I'm glad that FilSpari has finally come to market. I know it's been out there for a while in a bunch of other countries, and I'm glad that finally in the United States it's here, it's approved, and it's ready to go.
Yeah.
Get after it. Now, what kind of patient would be the best patient? I know you're not a doctor, but what would be the best patient for this FilSpari?
So if you look at FSGS, it's a little different than a lot of the folks maybe with IgAN, for example. So we have, I think there's 5 drugs approved for IgA nephropathy, and that tends to come on a little slower and progress, no less urgent than any of the other diseases, and it needs to get treated aggressively. But FSGS tends to come on pretty hard and sudden, and it really has a sense of urgency around it that needs to be treated right away, right? So most doctors, again, I'm not one. So guys, everything I say, you got to check with your doctor before you do anything. But, at
100%.
the end of the day, please do think about the fact that y- you got to get your protein under control. So first thing people are going to do is going to try the old standby of, hey, let's put you on a course of steroids short term. And that's the key, right? And if it can get your disease rather into remission, great. It's a low cost option. It's easy. And if you're only on a short time, no real damage. The problem is when patients are responding to the steroids and then they're kept on the steroids for more than a short time. You got to remember, steroids are immune suppressant, right? If you're
Hmm.
on them for a long time, other bad things happen in the body, and you don't want that. So, in my opinion, again, not as a doctor, the ideal patient is somebody who has tried steroids and failed. Either you were not steroid responsive, or if you're steroid dependent. So you respond to steroids, but I can't get you off, right?
Mm.
You don't want to be on what Josh and Dan had at 80, 100 milligrams. We didn't have these drugs back then, right? So now they're there.
Thank you so much for tuning into the FilterLIFE podcast. Listen, I wanted to take a brief moment, just a brief moment, and share with you a little bit about the Enlisted Kidney Foundation and some of the really cool things that are coming our way. So we are a veteran-led, veteran-focused 501c3 nonprofit organization. When I was first diagnosed, listen, I wasn't looking for the pamphlet. I wasn't looking for the website. What I was looking for was community. What I was looking for was somebody who had walked this walk before. That's why we created the Enlisted Kidney Foundation. We are here as a mentoring organization to walk this walk with our patients. And right now, we're preparing to represent patients at the Kidney Week, and we can't do it without you. This year, the Enlisted Kidney Foundation, I'm proud to announce that we have received the Sellies Championship Award for our mentorship efforts. That means we need to get out to Denver, Colorado, so we can receive this award and bring your voices with us. After that, we're headed to DC, so we can take on with our congressional leaders House Resolution 3639, the PFAST Act. As many of you know, my kidney disease was directly contributed to my exposure to toxochemicals, specifically these PFAS forever chemicals. We're going not to just to support 3639, but House Resolution 2687, the End Kidney Deaths Act, which is going to provide altruistic kidney donors $50,000 in a refundable tax credit over 5 years. And we're going to go up and support House Resolution 1518. That's the new era of kidney disease to end end-stage kidney disease. That's going to help set up centers of excellence in our Black and brown communities. These are things that need to be passed. These are laws that need to be changed, and we can't do it without you. So if you can find it in your hearts today to donate to our organization, you can head over to our website, enlistedkidneyfoundation.org/donate. Thank you again, and back to your show.
And you don't want to be on high dose steroids for a long time. You talk to your doctor about that and have a really informed discussion about, they don't have to live your life. You do, right? When I had that episode of being on my neighbor's lawns with my arms in the air, I went in the next day and I quit my job. And I was a CEO of a company at the time, and I just couldn't do that. My mental status was not where it should be at that level. And so it really does affect your life. And so now we have therapeutic options that spare you that. So I would say, if you were to ask my opinion, talk to your doctor if you're not responding to the steroids, or if you are dependent on steroids for long term and you can't get off. That might be a great candidate for FilSpari.
Gotcha. Now, I'm doing some research on FilSpari. Correct me if I'm wrong or if you've heard differently, but FilSpari is a medication that not only reduces the proteinuria, but is it providing protection to the kidney as well?
Yeah, so much. It's really funny. So I worked in the drug industry for 35 years, and I can tell you that the majority of drugs that we think we know how it works, when they first get approved, years later we find out, that wasn't the mechanism. And what we do know about FilSpari is we know that it's an endothelin receptor antagonist. We know it also works very much like other agents, RAS inhibition. But at the end of the day, there's something else going on, apparently, because the evidence in the scientific literature shows there's other things happening, and that it's a pretty cool mechanism. But I think there's more to be found out, because we're getting more benefits than just those two mechanisms, and is what I'm reading in the literature. So far, so good.
Yep.
And again, there's a thing called therapeutic index. Therapeutic index is, okay, what do I get from the drug from efficacy balanced with what the side effect is?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is a drug with very low side effect profile. And so there are certain things there you have to watch out for, REMS programs, and make sure you get pregnant, for example, during the treatment, and watch for other things. But for the most part, it's a very, very well tolerated agent with a nice therapeutic index. So people ought to be given access.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I have been a person who has experienced most negative side effects of most drugs that I have tried. I don't know why, but I experienced those bad
Because you're a
side effects.
sensitive guy. You're just, that's what happens,
yeah,
right?
all that. That's yeah. If it's rare, it comes to me. So we were talking about things that this high dose steroid. So I deal with what they call epidural lipomatosis, which is fat deposits that have grown in my spinal cavity, inside my spinal cord. And as those continue to grow, they cut off the nerves inside your spinal cord. So it gives you neuropathy, and you just live with this, and you just have this nerve pain, and eventually it could cut off the use of your legs. That's, again, side effects of high dose steroid. We don't want our patients to have to be on there. But at that point, when I was being diagnosed from 2020, that was the treatment, was give them the high dose steroid until we can kind of get them stable, kind of. And then it was, he's in the VA, and there's not a lot of education there, and we don't even have access to get to his doctors, and we don't know anyway, it just goes down these rabbit holes that we're trying to keep people from having to even go down in the first place, right? So one question, the new era of, not what you're thinking, but the new era of kidney disease, okay? The new era of kidney disease looks different now that we have treatments available. Talk to me a little bit about what you think this looks like in the next 5 to 10 years.
Oh, man. That's my favorite subject. Most of the people listening to this are probably too young, but, imagine it's 1968 and we're about to put the first person on the moon in 1969. That's where we're at today
Wow.
with kidney disease. It has been something we've been working on for decades, 50 years, right? We've had, when you tell your story and I tell mine, we didn't have anything back then.
Mm.
I mean, you got steroids and off-label cancer drugs, and man, we really couldn't offer much. Today, name me a rare kidney disease, and I'll tell you there's either a drug approved recently in the past 2 years, or there's one about to be approved in the next year or so. It is incredible. I mean, this is the renaissance of kidney disease that we've been waiting for forever, and it's just exploding. We've
How
gone
do you think we
from
got here? How do you think we got here?
yeah,
And why? And
it's
why now? Why now?
somebody at like Harvard Business Review or somebody's got to do a great paper on this. And if they want to help, give me a call. You know, what do you need? Well, the first thing you need is interest by folks,
Mm.
right? And so NephCure and others invested like $40 million into early basic research. And all of a sudden we figured out, now we have an idea how this goes to this, and then that slide of FSGS. So we have pathways that are discovered, right? And then the drug companies say, you know what? I have a drug for that pathway. I was using it in a lung disease or a skin disease, but it might work in the kidney. And I think the other big thing, and you got to give a lot of credit to the FDA. Dr. Eliza Thompson, who I want to call out by name, is just one of the heroes and angels in this world who's been at this for years. And she made it her mission to help find a pathway to get drugs approved in rare kidney disease. So there was this beautiful coalition of forces. You had the ASN with the Kidney Health Initiative and NephCure and National Kidney Foundation, all research-based organizations who are trying to figure this out and work together. And that's was just a beautiful thing. And one of NephCure's superpowers is bringing these groups together. But, it was the FDA saying, I got a pathway to get your drug approved. It's the drug company saying, aha, I think I got something for that. And then patient advocacy organizations saying, hey, listen, we'll work and make sure the patients get exposure and make sure that clinical trials are successful, because that's the only way we're going to get the drugs. And
Yep.
guess what? It happened. You were there.
Yep.
And so this is a short version of a really long, complicated, but beautiful love story where everybody got together and said, you know what? Let's work together and make this happen. And so now you've got a renaissance in kidney disease where I would venture to say somebody diagnosed with kidney disease today, if we can get to them in time, if you can get to the Enlisted Kidney Foundation or NephCure, any of the organizations, we all have the resources to put you in touch with the right doctors, make sure you get access to all these
Yes.
things, right? And
Yes.
so I would say 90+% of the chance of the time, we can keep you off dialysis and transplant.
Mm.
And that's the goal, guys. We want to keep your native kidney healthy as long as we can, possibly for the rest of your life. And we now have the ability to do that in the vast majority of the cases. We couldn't even say that just a few years ago.
We couldn't say
That's
it.
how far we've come.
Absolutely. We could, and you guys, look, NephCure did it for me. I've never been on dialysis, and I've never qualified for transplant. So because we came together, we put brains together, we were able to be vulnerable together. We were able to bring, like you said, a conglomerate of organizations and have common ground, common conversation. I remember being interviewed on the stage with the FDA and the NIH and the guys who created rituximab, and all the brains were in the room. I was a little nervous, but I'm so glad that we were able to put that together, that event. I think it's a once in a lifetime event that happens for such a disease like this. I would have loved to learn when this happened for other diseases like cancer that made these things so much more popular, because cancer is so much more popular than kidneys, but kidney disease is way more prevalent than cancer. So I don't even get it.
1 in 7 Americans will be affected by chronic kidney disease, to your point. And
Yes.
so what we have 320, 50 million people in this country. That's over 30 million, right? And most of that's going to be diabetes and hypertension related. But the most severe, so here's an interesting fact for your folks joining in. Rare kidney disease, while it's less than 1% of the population of kidney disease, it accounts for over 30%, almost 1/3 of people who go on to end stage.
Mm.
And that's because the rare diseases, incidentally, also happen to be the most severe.
Yeah.
And the good news is we've launched organizations like the International Society of Glomerular Disease, which now the doctors who take care of these diseases have a place and get all their information, what clinical trials, what drugs are approved, and those type of things to bring everything together. So I think that's something really to call out to people, that this community really works well together. And
They
I
do.
love
I
what
mean,
you said,
they do. I
please.
remember we're talking to Dr. Beck about Parasol and how Parasol came together and created all these different things, and the voice of the patient, where we just created like this Bible script. And it was just like, look, this is
Hmm.
written in stone. Don't ever change this. It was awesome. It was awesome. But so you talked about something that was important. You said how we got there where we are today. It was a large in part by advocacy. And I remember being a part of some of that, understanding that the red tape wasn't always in the doctor's office. The red tape wasn't always with my medical team. Sometimes the red tape was with the people who approve these recommendations. My medical team was trying to prescribe me the correct medication, but the people who approve it and want that we need to pay for it aren't. So we butted heads a lot. And I think a lot of that still happens. And where I found a lot of success was going to DC and standing up in front of Congress and being vulnerable and sharing my story and basically letting them know that they got two beans in their bodies too. And we got to all
Oh, yeah.
kind of work together to get the awareness out there. So I know you spent years working with lawmakers, healthcare leaders, advocacy organizations. What have you learned has been the difference?
Yeah. That's a beautiful segue, I think, into the topic of, a little bit of politics. But, look, people who are in Washington, they're people too, right? And when you say 1 in 7 Americans, every one of those folks have somebody in their family who's going to have kidney disease, right? And then they're constituents. And the issue is that, you know, unfortunately, there's a very large dialysis industry in this country, and we don't have enough transplants to go around for people. And so at the end of the day, your constituents, congressman or congresswoman, they want to be productive. They want to work. They don't want to sit home and be on dialysis. And that's not the life that people want. And unfortunately, up until, as I said recently, that was the choice. We didn't have the medications we have today, but just in the past few years, that's all changed. So it's
Yeah.
no longer okay. And if that argument isn't strong enough, the dollars and cents makes sense too. We spend, how many multiple tens of billions with a B, every day, every year on dialysis and transplant, when in fact, most of that can today be prevented, right? So if we get to
Yeah.
the patients early enough, and, sadly, the life expectancy of people on dialysis is not long, relatively speaking. And so, uh, it's the new patient we're talking about before they get to dialysis where we can make a change and just stop that paradigm. So going to DC, yeah, they want to be helpful. They really do. And I think it's just a matter of giving them the information they didn't have, because you and I are here talking, we're at the front line, right? These, you got to let them know, hey, times have changed. It's not okay anymore. Status
Yeah.
quo has changed, and we can save the federal government billions of dollars, and we can improve the quality of lives of your constituents, people like you and me, by just making sure they get access to the right doctors and the right drugs that are now approved.
Now,
Not
Josh,
complicated.
yeah, it's not that complicated. But at some point, doing the work that we do, that you and I do, it pulls us away from the street, right? We advocate now in different ways. I can't always be on the street advocating in front of Congress and in front of DC every day, right? What do we tell the new era of advocates lining up to go to Congress, the people who are motivated said, look, I want to go. I want to be a part of this too. What do we say to them when you may have 30 seconds, you may have 4 minutes with a congressional member? What advice do you give that new advocate to help get that congressional member to care?
Beautiful. I'll give you my elevator pitch. Senator, it's more prevalent than cancer, just like Mr. Holmes just said. It's 1 in 7 Americans. your constituents, it's a new day. They don't want to go on dialysis and transplant. And a couple years ago, if I saw you, I couldn't say this, but today it's different. The medications are there. We just need your help because the financial system right now, the way doctors are reimbursed and the way the healthcare system, it is almost rigged because that's what they do. 90% of these folks who are nephrologists, they're great people. They're really wonderful doctors. They're there to help, but they also make their living through dialysis. And we got to change that and get to preventive medicine. And that aligns with the president's agenda. It aligns with everybody else's agenda. And one thing we could all agree on, that if we can treat you with available medications and keep you off dialysis transplant, isn't that a great thing? Well, we can do that now. All right, I think I got 5 seconds left. Go ahead.
That was perfect. That was perfect. That was perfect. So yeah, that's great information because I know that NephCure's got a group going up to DC. We have a group going to DC. We also tag along with you guys and other people, and going to DC is a special opportunity, I think, for an advocate. It gives us the opportunity to really bring people's voices to the forefront and stand there in front of the people who make these decisions, not just sit at home and scream at the TV because you don't agree with what's happening, but actually show up and try and be part of that change, which is difficult. Not everybody is built for that, Josh. We know this. Not everybody's built for that. But the ones that are, I think what you just gave was great information to sit down and convince a congressional member that this is more prevalent in cancer. More people die per year from this thing than cancer alone. And 1 in 7 people that congressperson is going to meet with that day is going to have kidney disease. And 90% of those people that congressperson is going to shake hands, that one in 7 person that has kidney disease, ain't even going to know it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up because how do we get to somebody who's early, right? Well, the first thing is detection. And I think it's particularly relevant, to mention that years ago, we used to go to the doctor's office. They used to take out a dipstick and check your urine, and well, they don't do that anymore. There's a whole bunch of reasons, but it's largely insurance. But today, you got to insist. All right, it's going to cost $2. Get the dipstick done. Ask your doctor. So my one advice to everybody is, even though you may be on this podcast and you may have kidney disease, encourage all your family members because they may be at high risk because you have it. Or
Right.
anybody for that matter, right? Get at least once in a while, once every few years, have a dipstick done. It's $2. Get it, and now we can see whether you kidney problems. And if you do, and you don't have any symptoms, it may be early enough, probably is early enough to really get ahead of it. You may not ever have real problems. So I think it's especially true with our veterans and the military system. EKF, you guys are doing a wonderful job because let's face it, the veterans VA system is a special added challenge to getting care, right? And so it doesn't take a lot. It's not a big ask to ask for a kidney check. And the other thing I would recommend is, anybody in the VA system and the physicians you're seeing, recognize they're no different than the average nephrologist out in the community. These diseases we're talking about, RKD, it stands for rare kidney disease. And so chances are you have membranous nephropathy, Dan. I'll bet your doctor doesn't see another one for another 6 months to a year, right? So how do you become really good at something that you only see once or twice a year, right? I always tell people, you jump out of an airplane with an instructor that only goes once or twice a year, right? Of course not. So I'm not saying you can change the doctor and the kid in the system, but go to EKF, go to NKF, go to NephCure. All of us can get free help, free advice from somebody who is an expert and liaise with your doctor. You don't have to give them up, but they should be at least part of your care team. And they can say, hey, here's the latest and greatest on this disease. And, they're great people and they offer their time up. And that's what our organizations do. So, again, I think if you're in the VA system in particular, come to the patient advocacy organizations because we can help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They absolutely can. And, I take it a mission apart mine to go into the VAs, because if we stand by and just wait for people to come to us, we're going to wait forever. So I go into the VAs. I go into the dialysis centers. I go to the patients. I go and talk to the people. I like you, Josh, I've learned from you, and I'm going to tell you this. I've told you this before, but I'm going to tell you again, and I'll tell you in front of everybody. But I've learned from you because you're a CEO of a national organization, and I met you as a patient in some of my worst times that I've ever been in my life. And for you to come from that position of power to reach a hand out, to say, hey, look, I'm not just gonna pass you on to Christine or pass you over to this person or tell you what to do, or, oh, Dan, you need to go do this. You were like, hey, here's my number, here's my hand. Let's work this together because this is rare. What we don't know, we don't know. So let's try and figure out what we don't know together. And you did that in a way that NephCure continues to do, that goes and doesn't forget about the patient. And I take that to the Enlisted Kidney Foundation, and I pride ourselves into trying to find unique ways in 2026 to reach the people that feel like crap, the people that woke up today that didn't know if they were gonna, the people that have to get up and go look at that peritoneal dialysis machine, the people that get the U-Haul dropped off in their driveway. They got to go figure out how to put all this stuff together. Those are the people that I'm trying to reach in a similar fashion that you reached out to me. So I appreciate the old fashioned that we had. It was awesome. I remember you
with the extra smoke. Don't forget that part.
With the extra smoke. It's a smoked old fashioned. Now it's a thing, man. It's a thing. You know, I got to introduce Dr. Beck to his first smoked old fashioned. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, what advice would you give to smaller grassroots organizations like ours, like EKF, that are trying to create meaningful change on a bigger scale?
Thanks for asking. And first of all, thanks for the very kind words. And you and I are really lucky to have the positions we have where we get to help people on a daily basis. And I get paid for it too, which it's crazy. The advice to give to somebody today, you're charged with something that really special. I mean, our veterans are our prided heroes in this country. And, we have the VA system, which isn't all that bad, but it does have its ways, and they're understaffed and under-resourced, let's be honest, right? And so that's the system we have to work in. And I think where you are, there are unique needs of navigating that system that the rest of us just don't understand. And you've got your personal journey, and then when you get in, talk with physicians, for example, and do these wonderful things about talking about what's going on. There are organizations that the professional societies, the doctors. So there's now the International Society of Glomerular Disease. It's open to all of those folks who have an interest in rare kidney. It's particularly affecting people of color, disproportionate. 1 in 7 Americans, but it's not. It's 4 to 7 times more prevalent in people of color than their white counterparts. And so it is an issue that really needs to be up front. And I think putting those physicians in touch with organizations like the ISGD, liaising it together, I think that's the advice I would give. And just stay true to who you are. You're a beautiful human being. You're doing some great work with the veterans and getting people in that system. It's hard to navigate. And again, other organizations don't know the journey like you guys do, and that it is special. So thank you for what you're doing.
No, I appreciate you. Yeah, it's a difficult space to be in. It takes a unique type of person to be able to navigate this well, especially to be able to coach somebody through it, because it's a sensitive topic when you're not only talking about somebody's healthcare, but now you're involving their military service. And we're working with veterans, and we're connecting their service with their kidney diseases. And now we're being actually pretty successful to be able to connect their toxic chemical exposures to their kidney diseases with research, and working with other teams that are doing this research, and working with the VA and working with veterans. So the change is happening. The change is coming. Like you said, there's stuff right around the corner that's going to change the landscape of kidney disease. It just takes a group of people to come together to continue to do this. So that's why I wanted to bring you on the FilterLIFE podcast today, so we can again, bring community, bring each other together, and share the knowledge that we all have. And I appreciate your time today, Josh. Now, before I let you go, we do ask every one of our guests this one question. And here's the question. The question is, what does the word FilterLIFE mean to Josh?
I love that. I've been waiting for this one. all the time. So we talked about a whole bunch of stuff today. It's the changing environment and getting the patients early and how there are now treatments. And if we can get to the patients early enough, I think the filter and FilterLIFE has to deal with being able to filter out the noise. Because here's the truth, right? We have these great things, but gang, it's not an easy ride, right? We're talking about access now. You are going to get rejected. If you're in a VA system or in the public private payer system, these drugs are not cheap for treating rare kidney disease. And you are going to just expect it. Nothing personal. You're just going to reject it first, second, but usually on the third try, you're going to get it. So filter out the rejection. Focus on the fact that, yeah, I know. This is what they told me. It's going to take this time. Channel that anger, channel that energy toward the of not taking no for an answer. So filter out the negativity. Stick with the positive. You're going to get it approved eventually. You just have to take control. Don't lead it to somebody else. Work with the EKF, work with other organizations. We can help. So filter out the negativity. Focus on that I am going to get treatment and nobody's going to stand in my way because it's there. That's FilterLIFE
Awesome.
to me, Dan.
Thank you so much, Josh. Now, Josh, if somebody wanted to get in contact with NephCure, what's the best way to do so?
I will give you my email and my phone number. All right? Everybody. And I'm not kidding. Anybody wants to get in touch, my email is jtarnoff@nephcure.org or 610-506-0976. Just don't sell that to insurance salesman. It's your number. I'll promise I'll call you back.
He does. He always will call you back. He will always call you back. Thank you, Josh. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining the Filter podcast. And I can't wait until this airs, man. It's going to be a great episode. Thank you so much.
I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. Helping our veterans and helping the military community really is needed. So you're doing a beautiful thing. And I thank you and your team. Be well, brother.
Thank you, Josh. Absolutely. Talk soon.